Well, welcome everyone to Transformational Leadership in Transformational Times, our series of webinars. My name's Jeff Swinell, and I'm here with my colleague and friend, Mark Vandenine, who's the founder of Being at Full Potential. Mark is going to lead us all in just a few minutes in a longer recentering than we've done in the past, in which case he'll revisit some of the highlights from the interviews that we've had with our speakers, and then we'll open it up to your questions and a discussion. That's our agenda for today. Shall we get going now, Mark, do you think?
Yeah, let's kick off. We can make the best use of this hour. And so for this first part, if you could just put yourselves on mute and find a comfortable position wherever you are. There's nothing that you have to do. Just be comfortable, feel your feet on the ground. Maybe you want to straighten your spine, straighten your back. And if you're able to, you may also close your eyes. Just bring your attention to your breath. Bring your attention to your surroundings. Feel yourself starting to become fully present for this next hour. You don't have to think about the day ahead. You don't have to think about the day that has passed so far. And let's take a moment together to re-immerse, just very briefly, in the different stories that we heard over the last couple of weeks. The insights. Before we do that, I just ask you to connect with the original intention that you had when you joined this series. Maybe you can just go back to that moment when you signed up and you saw the posting on LinkedIn, or you got an email, or you heard about it. What was it that triggered you to join? Just bring that back into your awareness. Now let's go to November 23rd, which was the kickoff session where Jeff interviewed me. And I tried to give a little bit of context to why are we doing this? Why are we coming together? Why did we create this Transformational Leaders in Transformational Times webinar? And one of the things that I'd been feeling was that we'd come to a moment where it seemed to me that there was very little resistance to this idea that things are not sustainable anymore, that the status quo is not sustainable anymore, and that more and more people are acknowledging that and recognizing that. And at the same time, there's not a clear roadmap to the future. So we're in this space in between, and there is a need for a new kind of leadership, a leadership where we can navigate into the unknown, where we can trust more our intuition and trust more our vision and our aspirations, and lead from that place. I also shared a little bit of my story, my being entrepreneur story of following my heart, following my calling, and the ups and downs of that journey over the past 10 years. And then on November 26th, a few days later, we had Andrew Thornton join us, and he's the owner of a supermarket, an independent supermarket in London. And he shared with us what this supermarket represents to him. So it's more than a business. For him, it's a way to manifest his vision of bringing heart into business. And he talks a little bit about it as a playground, as a place to experiment with these ideas. And one of the most important ones was unleashing of self-leadership amongst his staff, and being very deliberate in creating conditions of trust and setting people free and seeing them in their greatness and their full potential. He shared with us stories of creativity where we had this picture of the tomato stand and how that was a key, this beautiful tomato stand, and how that was bringing more people into the store and creating an environment where people felt like they wanted to spend more time there and to spend more money in the store. He also spoke about this plastic-free initiative and how his team was able to come together in the shortest period of time, 10 weeks, to convert 1/3 of the store to plastic-free. And then finally, he shared with us that, even though this is on a small scale, he has this bigger vision, and he's bringing this experiment of his store in London to the world. And he's sharing that with the bigger retailers and showing them that it's possible and inspiring them to also take action. And then on November 30th, we had Laura Saldivar-Luna, the Chief People Officer of Teach for America, and share her beautiful story. A big part of it is her personal journey of bringing more of her full self into the work environment, expressing her being, shining her spirit into the work, and her journey of doing that. She also spoke about the healing process, the healing with her leadership team, and then the healing of her broader team, and beyond that, the healing of the organization. So many of these underlying blocks that people, I think, felt were there, but there wasn't a safe space for them to really come out and to be heard and to be listened to. And how the work that we did with her was really about creating that safe environment where people could bring everything forward and could feel safe in sharing these deep hurts, these deep and how that actually was an enabler to remove these blocks. And in removing these blocks, new energy can come through. And actually, when we think about performance and we think about a high-performing organization, it's maybe nothing more than an organization where the blocks are removed, so people can fully be themselves and bring their full potential into the work environment. Then a few days later, December 3rd, we had Tanya Gonzalez, the executive director of the Sacred Heart Center, and she shared with us the huge impact that the pandemic had on their ability to serve their community, the Latino community, and all the amazing work that they have been doing for many years to serve these people. So they had to shut down their community center, and at first they were not able to deliver those programs anymore. And she spoke about how through unleashing the creativity and the potential of the people and giving them the support that they needed, they were able to find new ways, innovative ways to still continue to serve their the community. They were still able to deliver their programs. She spoke about how important it was to actually care for the staff so that they could care for their stakeholders, and creating that space for them to also share their vulnerabilities and bring all of that into the workspace. And again, how that was an enabler of new energy coming through. On December 7th, so last Monday, we had K.S. Saravanavasan from India. He's the Vice President of Talent Development at Omega. And his story was quite a unique story of taking human potential data, so from the assessment, and applying a very analytical approach to human potential development. He spoke about how they were able to drill down into the data and identify ways in which people could be better matched with the potential that people could be better matched with the demands of the job, and how they restructured a number of areas in their organization, and how that led to again, innovation coming through, and ways in which they could increase the performance in the market. What was very unique about the story of KS was that it was the mindset that they applied to the data. So they were not coming at the analysis from a very analytical and rational point of view of how do we optimize our workforce, but they were looking at it as from a place of abundance, and looking at each individual as a whole individual, as an abundant individual. So that level of maturity or the consciousness with which they approached the analysis was really unique, and I think made all the difference in the effectiveness of their program. And that leads us to today, December 10th. Just a moment for us to come back together and to re-immerse in all of this rich journey, to feel grateful for these amazing leaders and the stories that they've shared, and the amazing work that they're doing. And also to acknowledge ourselves, each one of us, the transformational leader that is within us, and the steps that we are taking to make a difference in the world. And so now I just want to leave everyone with a couple of questions. So the first one is, what lessons have you learned as a change champion? What new insights have you gained from this webinar series? And what are you doing today, or what could you be doing today to put these lessons into practice? And finally, what next steps might be emerging for you? So what lessons have you learned? What are you doing, or could you be doing, to put these lessons into practice? And what next steps might be emerging? Let's just take a couple minutes. Maybe you want to take some notes. Just take a couple minutes to reflect on these questions. And then we can open up the conversation. So we are a small group today, which is nice because we can have a deeper conversation perhaps. And it also allows us to bring everyone into the panel. And the advantage of that is that we can use the video. So I'm going to just move everyone to panelist. You may need to accept that in your screen. And then we can see each other. There we go.
Mark, there was a request in the chat to put the questions into the chat. So I've written out what I understand to be the questions, and I'll ask you just to take a look at them.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's great, Jeff. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Laura, you're outdoors. If you'd like to turn the video off, that's perfect, huh? You don't need to keep the video on. As you like. There's a beautiful sunshine behind you.
Yeah, you're radiating.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the sun or it's her. That's
Both.
I love that.
Really nice. So welcome everyone. Really nice to see you, Raj and Monica. I've seen you on the webinars, but I haven't seen you on the video, so really nice.
Yeah, I had the advantage. It was always a one way.
That's right. That's right. That's the
Yeah,
way these
go.
webinars have been set up. And I think for the first part of the webinar, at least, it was a really good setup. For the second part, it would have been nice to be able to see each other, but that's the way the technology works. So lovely.
This is a cool feature, Mark, to beam us up to the panel.
We can
Yeah.
beam you into the panel. Yes.
We've been promoted.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So,
Awesome.
anyone would like to start?
Well, I can kick us off. So what I've heard throughout the different webinars is that when we open up the space for people to show up more fully and to take responsibility and become self-leaders, if you want to call it that then most of them will actually do. Right? There might be some people that may not have the courage or may not be quite ready to take that step, but in general, I find when we trust people or when we give them an opportunity to take responsibility, that they actually rise to the challenge and they actually then show up in the way that we in the way that we kind of like open them the space to be. So that was something that became even more clear to me, or clearer to me than it had been before, especially in what's his name again? Andrews, I think Andrew, right? Andrews,
Yes.
yeah. Andrews.
That's right. Yeah.
Session.
Yeah, that was a great example of that.
Yeah, but also with Laura, right? But what she said too.
I think so. Thanks, Monica.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, maybe I can follow up on that with maybe it's an observation that I had, and that is that we normally sort of want to see the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Yeah? So having done the full potential work or a great workshop or a great training, and maybe even a follow-up training like you did at Teach for America and at Thornton Budgeons, and then back to business as usual. And what struck me from all the webinars that I attended is that basically COVID is like one big showcase for everyone to sort of, okay, so how do we go about that now? And it gave me the insight also that this happens, of course, in other organizations in other countries on a more tiny scale, but this is one where we all are in this, so we sort of have a comparison, and the conclusion I seem to be drawing is that that investing in human potential development really contributes to building resilience, especially in these times where everything is uncertain. We don't know anything anymore, and that at that moment the fabric can either unravel, or you have a human fabric in place that you can tap into in the beautiful way that Monica just explained, and holding space or opening the space, inviting people to really show up vulnerably as a human, and that's where I see the magic happen in sort of that all of this work is really supportive in navigating exactly in these intense situations. So that's an observation that I also take for me as a sort of note to self in other projects that I work on.
Thank you, Hartmut. Yeah. I'm just thinking, I know that Tanya's group has redone the assessment after COVID as well as right before it. And so we're looking forward to looking at those results and seeing what's the story. I think, did KS mention that too, Mark?
He did, yes.
Yeah.
We actually have a pre and post COVID read with them as well, and we saw something really interesting happen on the harmony score. It was one of their lowest scores, and it still is one of their lowest scores, but it went up quite significantly after people started working from home and sort of gotten a certain comfort with working at home. And I think it can go both ways. I think the working from home can either increase the stress and make people feel like they have less time for themselves because work just expands beyond the normal working hours, or it can be where if the company really respects that, they actually save tremendous amount of times because they don't have to commute. There's a lot of these moments that add stress that are now gone. And I think that's they were not surprised by that. They were not surprised that this score had started to go up. Yeah.
To me,
What else? Annalika?
yeah. To me, what all the sharing from the panelists had in common is that it shows the power of this work, and that basically it can be applied to so many different organizations, different ecosystems, different themes as well. It's a methodology that creates and opens the space. And within that space, anything can happen. And the methodology has some guidance on which direction to take it. It's based on some higher principles that are pretty universal. And that my sense is that people inherently recognize the wisdom in it once they are exposed to it. And I think it also has demonstrated that this work works in a live setting, but it also works in an online setting, because you, Laura, were already working in an organization that was, for the most part, already virtual before COVID struck. And we, as Being at Full Potential, actually were also already working virtually on a global scale. So although the COVID, of course, is a wave sweeping over the earth. On the other hand, now is the time for us to fully show up with all that we have got, all that we have learned. And I was also so impressed by the leaders sharing. Well, let's take you, Laura. You shared how this work has the power of opening up the space for being and for wisdom and for tuning into yourself. But then it also, you as a leader took it further by modeling it in your leadership and being really congruent and authentic inside out. I mean, I was really blown away by your courage, where you said, okay, we are going to reinvent the human assets team of 80 people while bringing it back with 30 people, and while implementing and reinventing the whole organization. And it was such an inside out and on all levels congruent approach. So I remember Sujit saying when he wrote his book, which is about 4 masculine leaders and I asked him, where are the women? He said he hadn't seen them yet, but I've met a couple of them right now. And I really want to acknowledge you, Laura, for your courage. And the lesson that I take from that is the power of walking your talk and being congruent, really striving for that on all levels.
Thank you, Annalika. I wanted to build on that point, actually. It's so funny that you mentioned masculine and feminine, because I remember in one of our earliest conversations, Annalika, you were talking to me about those energies. And Mark, you reminded us in the recentering about energy and making space for the energy and new energies to emerge. And one of the things I think I've realized in my work in partnership with you all is it's almost like recognizing that our organizations have been built in a certain image, certain conditioning, certain ways of being, business, certain paradigm, but that there are also other paradigms, right? A universal human paradigm that can unite people across the divides that we've built, that can unite people across different cultures or countries. And the synchronicities, it's just a different level observation of the world that is so different from the traditional I experienced different from the traditional teachings of business or leadership. And I've really enjoyed exploring the type of leadership that you've helped open the door for me. And there's been a lot of inner journey. There's been a lot of noticing of nature, noticing of synchronicities and synergies. And it makes me feel kind of weird out in the rest of the world. Like, that's not the language most people in business or an organization speak. That's not the way, like, recentering at the beginning of meetings is not typically the way people start meetings. And I'm just so curious from the group how, as we step into this new form of leadership, Mark, that you were talking about in the recentering, where there is no blueprint and where we're stepping into the unknown and we have to lead from the intuition, that can feel very strange when the current paradigm is quite opposite. And I'm just curious how people are making meaning of that, how you all are reckoning with that in your own spaces. Because sometimes I feel like it feels a little weird, a little odd, but in a good way. And it's almost like the unwinding or the unlearning certain pieces.
Yeah, it's a great question, Laura. And that's why I think it's, for me, what's exciting is the more people I talk to, the more I realize that there is this general acknowledgement that things are, that what worked in the past is not longer working anymore now. I hear more and more people actually express that sentiment. Whereas maybe a year ago, before COVID came, or maybe 2 years ago, it was very different. You know, I think there was much more a sense of yeah, things are fine, things are moving. Of course, there's lots of issues in the world, there's lots of challenges. But when I look at my world and I look at, you know, my job and my family and my community, everything seems to be, you know, pretty smooth. But I think there's not a lot of people who will still say that, right? Who will genuinely still feel that way today. And I think what that comes with, it eventually comes with a new level of openness, a new sense of maybe I need to start trying out new things, right? Or trying out new ways of thinking, or new approaches to running meetings, or you know maybe this whole heart or intuition thing that I hear about sometimes, or spirituality in business, you know, which always felt like such a contrast, and you know doesn't fit. Maybe there's something to it. You know, maybe there is something to it. Even if it's just that little crack of curiosity, or that little crack of openness, that's already a huge step, right? That is a huge step. And I think what I'm constantly learning is, and this came up in the conversation with you, is meeting people where they're at, right? So, you know, always thinking about, okay, if I want to do a recentering, and it's a completely new person that I haven't met yet and I don't know, I'm not going to go into some very deep recentering right off the bat, because I'll lose the person, right? And they'll lose me. But how can I still embrace that idea of recentering before going into a meeting, where I don't lose the person, right? And maybe it's just as simple as saying, you know, let's just take a deep breath together before we get started, you know, or you know, something like this. And I remember when we started the conference, right? We had this big discussion around, shall we start with a recentering or not a recentering, you know, and we had quite some back and forth. And I remember feeling very strongly that we should, you know, we should stick with that, but do it in a way that is meeting people where they're at. And I think simply saying, you know, this is probably feeling uncomfortable, right? Acknowledging it, sitting here with your eyes closed, right? And if we can talk about it and acknowledge it, then all of a sudden it feels less uncomfortable, right? But if we don't acknowledge it and we're doing it and everyone's thinking, wow, this is weird, what is that person thinking, and this, and you know. But if you say, this is going to feel uncomfortable, but just stay with it for a second, you know, let's stay with it for a few minutes, right? And then we can talk about the discomfort afterwards, you know. So it's really like really tuning into how is the other, anticipating how the other person is feeling, and putting myself in their shoes and feeling that. And I think that can really go a long way. I'm curious what other people, because I think this is a really, really, really interesting question, and one that yeah, is very important in these transformational times, because if we continue doing the same thing, we're going to continue to get the same result. So there has to be something different, you know. We have to start showing up in a different way and embodying something different. Ah, there she is, Maria Jose. Hello, welcome. Yeah, those are some of my thoughts, Laura.
Building on that, Mark, what I'm always trying in my coaching is to implement the essence of the recentering, for instance, and look together with the coachee on where it can be implemented. And what I found is that the transition, so transitioning from one moment, one activity to another, you probably remember, Laura, those are moments where you can consciously do a little recentering for yourself, taking a breath, closing off where you come from, taking a breath, recentering, focusing on what is ahead, and in that way preparing yourself for the next meeting. So I'm really optimistic that with some creativity, these principles basically can be inserted, added, integrated anywhere. And actually it is all about transitions. Recentering is a way of transitioning yourself into another state of being. And this, what you shared in your webinar, Laura, how who you are being is also a choice. This recentering activity is actually the way in towards consciously choosing who do I want to be in this moment and how do I want to show up. And if I wish this would be taught in schools, because I think it's a life skill.
Yeah. Thank you, Annalika.
Yeah. Yes, beautiful. For me, each day there is, I'm starting as a blank sheet. I really feel like a little child, and I totally set my doors open, and I'm very curious how that each minute of the day is meeting me. And it's so, my heart is full of gratitude then miracles are coming to me. So the people who I met, etc., I see there with new eyes and really stepping in that unknown, and is such a beautiful way of living the day. So that's also in the energy what I really met in your webinar, Laura, really to see that curiosity, that openness, and that everything is possible if you start from that that way of beingness. Thank you for listening.
Nice, Maya.
Beautifully expressed. Yeah, I'm just listening to each of you and listened to the speakers as well. Each of you was inspiring in terms of the content and the reminder about three things that became very clear to me: that the old mindset isn't going to be working as well as it used to be, the old mindset. And some of the skill sets that we need to add, i.e., centering before a meeting, so that our nervous systems can get regulated, because there's so much unknown right now. And then to recognize when I'm emotionally triggered and I want to keep going back to the old pattern because I've done it for so long.
Wow.
You know, and so what I got from this is look, listen, and learn, because there's a lot emerging that I don't know how to respond to right now. So if I go back with the old tools, they may not be as effective. And it's just so much about the mindfulness has given, for me, mindfulness is now really has a different meaning. Mindfulness isn't just sitting on a cushion. It's how am I mindful in my conversations? How am I mindful being present with you? So each of you has contributed a lot to my understanding about how to be with the emerging.
Wow. Beautiful. And, you know, Raj, I really appreciate what you said around, you know, connecting the recentering. Recentering is not just a thing that we do because, you know, it's like just a ritual that we do because it's a, you know, thing to do, but it actually has real benefits, right? It kind of tunes us, retunes us, or you know, empties us so we can be present for something new that's coming. And I think that is also the work that we need to do, is to help people understand why are we doing the things that we're doing, right? You know, Laura, she spoke about healing, right, in the context of the work that she's been doing in the organization. And if you just talk about healing, people say, yeah, healing, that's great, but this is for, you know, outside of work, right? You know, do your healing. But if you talk about it as if you don't do the healing, then things are going to that basically that there's obstacles there that are preventing people from, there's energy that's blocked, right? Something, when things aren't healed, energy is blocked. And when energy is blocked, people aren't going to collaborate. They're not going to work together as effectively as they would otherwise. They're not going to be able to perform as well as they would otherwise. So when you frame it in that context and you say, no, we really need to do this deeper work. We really need to be able to have these conversations in the work context, because it is going to remove the blockages, right? And when we remove the blockages, that's how we're going to be able to really make progress. So I think that framing and helping people understand the connections between these ideas that may seem like inappropriate or not, not really in the realm of work, actually they do have a place there.
So our mind looks for predictability, our mind looks for safety and security. And with COVID, so much of that has changed. So how do we bring back that kind of connection in which it shows that we care about what's emerging and we will hold it together?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a deeper essence.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to add that in my experience, especially in this year, my sense is that this recentering or bringing back the human factor in any meeting or any moment is not as far away from the people as we sometimes think. I hear this well thought way of bridging a meeting where the other is, and my experience has been just bringing it as if there is no other way, or like this is how we do it. I've seen people immediately tap into that, so they recognize it on a very deep level. And I've done it with a lot of young people, and I jumped right into a very deep meditation, and some other people said, whoa, that was quite intense that you did. Nothing, they all went with it. And I've also done that with very senior people. And yes, there we talked a bit about the why of a check-in, and I heard a beautiful story about what it, especially also the checking in part, what the importance of checking in after the recentering to really bring you fully in the space. And I noticed that people do it, and these are people who've not been grown up with this, and they immediately seem to recognize the benefits of it. So somehow it's tapping into a remembrance, or something that Laura said, it's like unschooling or unlearning. So it's I think it's closer, we're closer there than we sometimes think we are. So by just bringing it in, people follow in it easily.
Really nice, Harman. If I
Yeah,
may say
just
something.
before you go, I just want to welcome Daniel into space. Daniel, hello.
Hey, Daniel.
Yeah, welcome here. And you can probably pick up what the topic that we're discussing here.
Three questions in the chat.
Go ahead,
Daniel.
Jeff.
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge Raj. Raj was my instructor in nonviolent communication. I took 4 courses from her. I don't know how many years ago now, Raj, but you look just as young now as you did then. It's great to see you here. Thanks for your wisdom. What occurs to me from what Harman and you both said was that all human beings have an innate need for connection. And it's either connection to ourselves or it's connection to that part of ourselves that's in other people. And so I think that's what these practices enable. And that's why, because everybody shares that need for connection, it's so easy for people to adopt these sorts of practices and derive meaning from them. It helps to connect to our higher selves, our internal transformational leader, if you will, and to what matters to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think COVID-19 is really an unprecedented opportunity for organizations to do this, because they recognize the need to actually walk the talk when it comes to caring for their people and treating them as their most important asset. You know, they've had to lay off or furlough so many people, and in so doing, that that ethos of caring about their employees has really emerged, and it's a force, it's a momentum, and I think there's an opportunity for all of us as change champions to harness that in whatever systems we work in, whether it's our families or our communities or organizations.
Beautifully said, Jeff.
Thank you.
I just want to pop in a small thought from, I don't know where I heard it. It's not my own words, but I'm loving it. That what industry, what people need from people like us. They need connections specialists. We're the people who can help them reconnect, whether that's the healing that you mentioned, Mark, the inner connections, or trusting and collaborating, going deeper and across. Being connections specialists is a new turn of phrase that I heard, and I thought it was appropriate to touch it in, pop it into the conversation here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that word. If I just may jump in. Also, like the work that I do a lot, I work a lot with individuals in leadership or other professional positions. And just recently, I've started working with a couple of individuals where this connecting factor comes in, because I have the honor and pleasure to actually help them connect more with themselves, because they're so much like walking in their intellectual capacity that they don't even realize what they're missing out on their heart, on their purpose, on like tapping into their vision and whatnot, right? So it's really beautiful to see, like when I stretch people a little bit into that area, what comes forth, right? And once that they are opening up that space for themselves and that deep connection to who they really are as a whole self, now they can also take it to their people and into their business, right? And that's where the connection that Marky pointed to, it to spirituality and business, where it can actually grow and evolve once that the leaders of those businesses are actually experiencing it for themselves and realizing how valuable or essential it is in order to run a business and a life that is congruent with who they really are and where they can fully express themselves, right? So I think that connection needs to start with the individual leaders and their team members in order to then live it as a team, as a business, and eventually, hopefully, as a world.
One other piece that I just want to add to what Monica and Jeff just spoke about is that in that connection, there's also that need for safety. I want to feel safe in connecting with others. And if I'm connecting with you only just to react or respond to what you're asking of me, that is just a hierarchical connection. Whereas the other connection that comes from a safe, caring, trusting place is, I care about what's important to me, and I know you care about what's important to me. So creating those kind of connection before direction is something Marshall Rosenberg often said. Connection before direction, or connection before correction. Yeah, and empathy before education. And empathy is just there to really create that bridge between where I am and where you are. And I think Laura was addressing that a lot in her session.
Well, I have a question that, something that is really on my mind these days, and I'm just curious how this group is feeling about it. Do you all feel like that we're at a tipping point? That we're at a tipping point, kind of where there is this acceleration in terms of awareness and in terms of understanding of the importance of connection, understanding the importance of safety, understanding the importance of holding space for each other, of realizing potential of spirituality in the organizational context. You know, all of these things that I think as, you know, I think many of us are, maybe most of us here are coaches, have felt for a long time. And I think the you know, there's been a little bit of disconnect between what we have been experiencing and feeling and what the market has been ready for. And I'm just wondering, like, are we at a tipping point here where all of a sudden that readiness is going to come, and it's going to come really fast? Or is it going to come, you know, just slowly and gradually? Or, you know, that's, I don't know, it's just something that is on my mind, and I have a feeling that it's accelerating, that there is this wave that is coming.
There's been a big growth.
Hey.
There's been a big growth. What? in certain spiritual interests. If you look at internet searches and the amount of people searching for meaning and purpose and connection because of the disconnection, COVID taught us what we valued. We all went through that, the whole globe. And when we go to something on the collective, that's when it becomes spiritual. When it's all one consciousness, one energy, then we know we're in that zone. So spiritual dimension has put a message to the world: not happy, guys, girls. You're gonna have to be apart from each other. You're gonna have to cover your mouth. You know, concentrate on each other, care about yourselves, think about what you're speaking and saying. There's been a message that's happening. But if you look in the workplace, certain people don't change. They're on survival mode. And there's like the emotional bank balance is in overdraft and going deeper. So there's the people who are doing the recovery work for themselves, and the others who are just forcing through process-driven system. You're just going to have to do it. There's still a lot of old mindset. So in answer to your question, Mark, we feel that there's a wave coming because we're awakening. But for those who are asleep, they're still asleep.
I feel that we are ideally positioned to help people learn to navigate the unknown. But what came to me just about when you asked that question is that for us, it's also again to go beyond that. So what came to me was that we need to switch, we can switch into embodying the miracle mindset.
Thank you all. For me, really, that COVID is giving us so much opportunities to have a new language. Everyone is wearing a mask. In the past, we had our roles and masks, and now we can have a communication about the mask in a much more lighter way. So who are you? I can't recognize you, etc. So the opening of communication is really starting for me much more in a deeper way, on a deeper level, but also in a lighter and playful way. So I really like this time to use those opportunities.
Fascinating. The mask.
Yeah.
The idea of a mask, right? We always talk about like hiding behind a mask, and now there is the physical mask, and there is something playful with that, right? Like, who are you behind this mask, you know, that you're wearing, right? Fascinating. Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Beautiful metaphor to say, let's reveal the person behind the mask. What do I want to know and learn about you? What have I not already understood about you? Gives us an opportunity to reveal the person behind the mask or the persona.
Or authentically show your mask.
Well, first you have to be aware of your mask, I guess. To answer your initial question, Mark, like my impression, sometimes I'm not sure whether we're actually at a tipping point or not, because I'm so immersed in conversations with people like today, like you guys, right? That it may seem to me as though there is a change like almost occurring, but maybe it's just a false impression because I'm just so immersed by the few people that are more aware and more awake, right? But overall, my sense is that I sure hope, and I think that the number of people that is becoming more conscious and aware and interested in living more fully is rising. Right, I'm not too sure whether it's at a tipping point or not, but I would sure hope so.
Yeah, I can share just an example, because this series was designed really to share the stories and also to attract like-minded change agents who are in organizations, so that they can be inspired and they can start to bring more of themselves into that space. And so, we reached out in the marketing, we reached out to our network. That was one way. And then I also decided that this was time to experiment a little bit with LinkedIn campaign, right? Never done it before. Curious about it. You can define your target group. You can say how much you want to spend. You can say how long you want to do it, et cetera. So I said, okay, this is a great example or a great opportunity to try that. And we had 100 people who signed up, like who actually registered, put their name, email, signed up. And I would say 80% of them were new people that I didn't know. They're not connected to my network. So people who actually saw the ad or heard about it from somebody and signed up, and many of them working in organizations. I would say maybe 20% or 30% of them have shown up over the course of this series. And I don't know if that's a good result or not. I don't really, that's not the point. The point is that I think just signing up is already a step. Even if they're not showing up and coming to the webinars or attending to them, maybe they're listening to the recording afterwards, right? But just signing up, I think, is already a step of curiosity and saying, hey, this is catching my attention. I'm interested. I'm going to sign up. But then the next step, of course, is attending and participating and getting involved in the conversation, etc. But I think that is already that's already something, right? That already tells me that, yeah, this is there's movement. There's movement. So I just wanted to share that because I think it's interesting to know not only what the intention was behind this, but also what kind of people have we been able to attract to this? What kind of interest have we been able to generate? Because that for me is a sign of the tipping point, right? If all of a sudden there's a lot of interest in these kinds of events, that gives me a sense that, hey, people are ready, so I just wanted to to kind of be open and share this. And I don't know if it's if it's a good result or not good result, but all I know is that this has been extremely fun. It's been extremely rewarding. I know that this content is going to continue to live. It's not just ending here. This content is going to continue to live. It's going to continue to inspire people in ways that I can't even imagine yet. So I'm extremely grateful for the guests that we've had, the clients that we've had. I'm extremely grateful for all of you who have participated, who've shown up, who've shown interest, who have engaged with this, and who are continuing the conversation, like the conversation we're having today. And yeah, I'm very hopeful, like Maya Jose said, very optimistic, and I choose to believe that we're at a tipping point. It's also a choice, right? It's not something that's either there or not there. I think it's also a way of, it's up to us to embrace that, and to invite that tipping point in. So yeah, I would. That's my kind of rounding up. We've come to the end of the hour. I don't know if anyone else would like to share some closing words before we say goodbye today. And the conversation continues. This is not the end of the conversation, but for today, if anyone else would like to share something, please do so.
I don't always like to miss such opportunities, but Mark, I want to express gratitude to you and being at Full Potential family. It's inspired me and give me language and frames of reference that I just didn't have before. And yeah, keep on going, keep on keeping on.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Jeff for inviting me and Mark for putting this on or co-organizing it. It was coming at a really good time for me to be involved in this kind of conversation. So I really appreciated the opportunity to connect and learn and have this conversation today. That was the icing on the cake for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff and Mark, for this initiative. Really great to enjoy all the calls, and we are going on, and I enjoy it very much. Thank you for the good energy I feel also from the people I didn't know as Rai and Monica. Thank you so much for showing up.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Maya.
And thank you, Jeff and Mark, for hosting. And Mark, thank you for the reflection session this morning. You took us into the journey of the webinars. That was so appreciated. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Jeff, I think I've expressed my gratitude already a few times, also bilaterally. And for me, it was great to be, well, to have this inside out experience from the people that you worked with. And in one case, I also worked with. That was really very powerful and very inspiring. And also the timing was perfect. Like, again, you say transitional times or transformational times. I don't know, transformational leadership in transformational times. Well, it certainly has been, and it's going to stay for some time. That's my sense, because the results or the consequences of this year are not over yet. So yeah, thank you. I think it was very rich, and thank you for organizing this. And I love this icing on the cake too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Armin.
For me, it's also a wonderful way to wrap up this series, of which probably many more will follow. And inviting the tipping point in. I'm really happy to meet you there, Mark, with my embodying the miracle mindset. I think this is like, it goes like this. And ultimately, that's why I'm here and why I'm involved in this work and why I so hugely enjoy connecting with like-minded people as today. So I really thank you for the connection and for the wisdom that has been shared.
Beautiful. Thanks, Anneliek. And thank you to my dear partner in this. You know, it's been amazing co-creative experience, Jeff. Really. I've been loving it. And
thanks for inviting me in. I appreciate your initiative and the idea. And I also want to thank everyone on this webinar for supporting us during this series. You're some of my favorite people. So it's delightful to be here and to learn together.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Nice to see you again, Jeff.
And you, Raj.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.